What do you what do you think when you hear the word neurodiversity? Do you think it's a disability? My name is Audrey and I'm dyslexic, but so are 780 million people around the world. And 20% of the world is neurodivergent. No one has the same brain anatomy, but being neurodivergent means having a brain that thinks differently from the neurotypical person. There's no right way for our brain to work, and neurodivergent people have a more unique understanding of that. Neurodiversity is also genetic. If a family member has a neurodivergent, you're more likely to have one too. Neurodivergent people are often misunderstood because they process things differently and don't often fit into the learning norm. Judy Singer is an Australian sociologist who coined the term neurodiversity. She wanted to empower people and help them feel accepted and valued. Judy wanted to start this movement to embrace neurodiversity and all that it can offer, because being neurodivergent is thinking differently, not having a disability. This is what leads me back to Judy Singer. Her mom was neurodiverse, she describes herself as neurodiverse, and her daughter was diagnosed with Asperger's syndrome. She wanted neurodiversity to be viewed positively and accepted, and so do I. That's why I made Colorful Minds. When I was younger, I had always struggled with school and it had been hard for me. When I was learning how to read, I had a hard time and get super worked up. When I was in 5th grade, I took a test to see if I was neurodivergent, and in September 2022, I took a neuropsych eval test and got diagnosed with dyslexia and test anxiety. For my quest, I wrote a book named Colorful Minds to teach younger students about neurodiversity. When we first started doing quests, I was really nervous, and all I wanted to do was something that was important to me and something that benefited others. I was always embarrassed that I had dyslexia, and I didn't want anyone to know because I didn't want them to think I was incapable of doing my work. But while we were writing what was interesting about us for Quest, I wrote that I was dyslexic, and I thought of how I could change others' opinion of dyslexia, perspective of dyslexia. So I thought of Colorful Minds, and I knew that I wanted it to be a children's book so that young learners wouldn't feel embarrassed about having difficulties in school like I did. So I started creating my first character, Manny the monkey. There are monkeys all over Bali, and they're always swinging and jumping and moving around, and that reminded me of ADHD, so I started building his character. Next was Sully the snake. Snakes slither, and in some ways that reminded me of dyslexia because when I was younger, I had a hard time saying certain letters and words. Next was Greco the gecko. Whenever there's a gecko in my house, they run away fast and scared, and that reminded me of anxiety. Lastly was Guppy the puppy. I didn't know what neurodivergent I wanted to pick and what animal that I wanted to choose, but I know that dogs have enhanced hearing unlike humans, so I thought it related to sensory processing disorder. I have a very personal connection with each of these characters because in some ways they represent members of my family. My twin sister has sensory processing disorder growing up, and I knew how hard it was for her. My mom and my older sister have ADHD, and I know the traits that they possess. I couldn't to Gecko the Greco because I have test anxiety, and it can overlap into out-of-class settings too. But most of all, I relate to Sully the snake because I wrote her character on my personal story and what I was going through in school. When I was trying to find an artist, Ibu Kat told me about Farah. She was an amazing artist who would help my characters come to life. She sent me a rough draft of She sent me a rough draft over spring break, and when I got to Bali, the drawings were done. I had lots of meetings with Ibu Amber, and when I was done, I had my mom, Ibu Angie, and Ibu Laura edit it. I put all my work into Canva and waited for the drawings to be done. I used Ika Print Bali to print my books. The books were printed on May 24th. When I was making Colorful Minds, I hit a rough patch because of printing difficulties. It was really hard to set up a time to print my book, and it was hard to get a loan from the iHub. When I was with grade 2 present to, I got to sit into 3 classes and see what they were reading. I went back to read the book to grade 2 and to Starlings. I think the writing process went really well because when I first started the book, I already knew what I wanted to do and what the characters to look like in their personalities. I made this book to teach students about different neurodivergence and to teach them what tools that they can use to help. I sold my book at Spirit Friday. Colorful Minds focuses on 4 neurodivergence: sensory processing disorder, ADHD, anxiety, and dyslexia. In elementary and middle school, I was always the last one done with tests, the first one in my teacher's office hours. I worked twice as hard as everyone else while still getting worse grades. Every time I got a bad grade, I got more insecure. But having a neurodivergent is not something that you can control. I made this book to raise awareness on how I felt in school and when others make comments about me when they don't know what they're talking about. That's why I wanted to make Colorful Minds. I think that students need to have a better, more positive view of being neurodivergent than I had of myself, because being neurodivergent can be a bigger strength than weakness. My goal is to sell this book all over Bali into different schools. Quest has changed my opinion about neurodiversity and myself so much. Along this Quest process, I have learned so much about myself and reflected on how I used to view myself in a learning environment and how much I used to compare myself to others. I never want anyone to be struggling with school and be too afraid to tell someone. That's why I knew I needed to make Colorful Minds. I'd like to thank my teachers, especially Ibu Laura, Ibu Angie, Ibu Harriet, Ibu Amber, and Ibu Nasha. My mom for always supporting me and helping me through my Quest process, and my friends, especially Abby, Flora, Ella, and Sveen.